All right, welcome back, everybody. This is going to be the third and final video, just going over the Silver 101 points. So again, as I said with all of them, just to put a little caveat that I'm not a financial advisor. I can't give any formal advice, blah, blah, blah. This is for entertainment purposes only. Just trying to give you some thoughts in terms of if you have money to invest, what would that look like? How would you do so? In a way that's going to make sense and for the best stretch and value of your money long term. And that's why we're talking about metals. So now I want to switch and start talking about storage. I've gotten a number of questions about storage and what that looks like and how do you do that. So my recommendation is to not store it in a bank account, okay? That you don't want to have like a safety deposit box or something that you go to a formal FDIC insurance bank to house it in, because if crap would hit the fan, that then it's possible, and the Democrats have already been talking about this, of a possible bail-in. A bail-in is different than a bail-out. So there's a great video that talks about, let me pull that up here, the dangers of what happens during a bail-in. This was a video that Pimpy did. Lessons from Cyprus is what it was called. Yeah, right here. Lessons from Cyprus. What happened, or learn what happened in Cyprus, or lessons from Cyprus. So that's what Pimpy did. And he talks all about Cyprus and Greece. And basically what the cabal did is they thought, well, we will experiment with another country and see how people will respond if things go to pot, that the market crashes, and then they so basically what they did is they went in, and the government literally went in overnight to everyone's bank accounts, to their 401ks, to anything that was held, and even through banks and all of it, and took everything. They left them just a percentage, and they took it all. So this is very real. This does happen. It is possible if which I don't see happening here because we're on a good timeline, but bail-ins definitely are not theoretical, that they have taken place before. So that is why I will never open a safety deposit box through a bank, okay? So I put my money in a vault. So you can just look in terms of vault storage that's near your home. And if you have, over a certain amount, then you want to seriously consider putting it in there, because you are left at risk if you keep it on your person. I mean, look at Zandaria, right? I mean, her home literally burned down in Southern Oregon not that long ago. She had minutes to escape, and she lost it all, okay? So, if you're going to keep it at home, we'll talk about the specifics of what that can look like in a minute. But so if this is a good video, again, like I mentioned in video number 1, Pimpy is a great resource to look at for other options. But one of the things he describes as an alternative is, aside from keeping it at home or in a vault, is to do what is called CDAR, CDARS. And basically what they do is it's like you're investing through them, but then they equally distribute all of your money into separate, how do I say it? It's not really a separate account, but through separate basic agencies. And so everything gets splintered off. So should FDIC insurance be needed, that FDIC insurance technically only covers $250,000. So if things were to go in the toilet and the insurance is needed through these formal banks, should they crash, which there is talk of that happening, by the way, that, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, US Bank, all these big banks, if they crash, you are only able to get $250,000 back. And that's going to be a delay, right? Because you're going to have to apply for it, and then they're going to have to give it to you over time, and they only give you $250,000 back. But that's never happened before, right? Because that got set up after the crash of 29. So that's theoretical, right? I think it was Charlie Ward or Pimpy or one of them was saying that in reality, they're probably only going to cover $75,000. So if you have more than that amount, I wouldn't keep it in a bank. And like I mentioned in the last video, the elite don't do that. They don't keep that amount of money in a bank account. They turn it all into precious metal, and they have it housed elsewhere in a huge safe in their home or in other sorts of other ways of hiding it. Okay, so what CDARS does is they distribute it elsewhere so that you'll make sure and get all your money back should some sort of situation happen. Okay, so let's see. A little bit of a tangent, but kind of good information. So again, basic takeaway, don't store it in a bank. Either do it at a vault or in your home. So if you're going to do it at your house, where do you store all of your metal? So you can pull a pirate and you can bury it. You can put it in a fireproof safe that you purchase, and you just house it somewhere safe. Put the safe in a safe spot. You don't want to put it near any windows, so should a robber come, they can just try to push it either out a window or take it out through a front door or something like that. You're going to want to keep it in a strategic place that they're not going to want to look. Okay, so that's kind of 101. Some other places that you can put it that are more creative, put it in plastic. Take your coins and put them in like plastic yogurt containers, and then put that in your freezer. That was kind of an interesting one that I heard. Let's see. Pimpy suggested you can buy like old paint cans that you clean out, and then you put your silver in the paint cans, and you just splash paint on it, or put like tape that says old paint or used paint or house paint or something like that. You put it in your garage and put like a rag over it so that they if robbers were to come, they're not going to look in through your freezer. They're not going to look into the old paint. They have a very short amount of time to try to get what they want and get out of there, right? Because timing is everything for them. So, just be thinking about this. You can get really creative, I mean, if you had lots of money, you could create like a false wall, false panel, some secret storage facilities, which is kind of cool. I've seen some like... how do you describe it? Like, you have like, like in Batman, where you have a book that you pull back and like a secret door kind of unlatches or unhooks from the bookshelf and kind of goes into like a storage facility or something like that. I mean, that he went to the Batcave, but you can put anything behind there. So the sky's the limit in terms of just different options. So the point is, the takeaway is get creative. Okay. So that's going to be actually where you house it. So, but do you want to keep all your coins loose? So you can hop on to Amazon. You can go to your local coin store. They will all sell things like this of just storage tubes is what they're called. But you just got to be really careful because the size of these is very precise. So there are ones that are specifically made for like quarters or dimes or things along those lines. But the Kennedy 50-cent piece, okay? But if you buy ones that, let's say, like this one here is for American Silver Eagles, okay? But from my understanding, the Silver Eagle is going to be a slightly different size than the Canadian Maples, okay? And so you won't be able to fit both of them in the same size container. So just make sure that whatever you're going to house in there is going to actually fit. So... something to think about. And then in terms of storage, so what I have heard about, so this one in particular, let's look at this. That these tubes here, okay, the way these are a bitch, let me tell you, because you've got these containers and they snap on super, super tight, okay? And so it's really hard getting these off. And when they come to you, like when you order a bunch of coins like in the mail or something, first of all, they're heavy, but second of all, there's going to be like a very heavy-duty tape that is taped over the side. So you're going to have to take a knife to kind of cut it off, like on the side here, first of all. And second of all, it's hard to kind of pull that top plastic piece off. So a little hack, if you get some of these, is to just twist. See how there's like a little node on the side? Twist that so that it's not in perfect alignment with the base of the container. And that way you can use that little node here as a further grip in order to take the top off. So just a little hack there. Now, depending on what types of coin you buy, again, if you want to be more on like the numismatic or coin collecting side, getting some sort of coin album is kind of cool. But again, just be cautious about the size of the little plastic containers here, because depending on what coins you get, you might not be able to fit them into the openings, the little square openings. So see here, like oftentimes when you buy like a coin from like a coin shop, they will be inside of these square little tabs here, or I guess it's a container or something. But not all of these are the same size. So just be really cautious and do your dimensional homework to make sure that the size is going to fit properly. So there's your warning on that. So I have some of these, and these are really cool. So this is called Lighthouse Vario G Classic Binder with a slipcase. And so this comes empty, but it's pretty cool just visually. And then you have to buy the inserts. And so you just type in, plastic inserts or something like that for coins. And then you want to make sure that, that you're getting the right size. And there you go. Okay, let's see if there's anything else that I missed in terms of storage. So private safe, definitely the way to go. Depository or vault storage. Hidden places. Okay, so I think that's all I want to say about that. All right, now let's talk about selling silver. We haven't really touched on that yet. So selling silver is so much easier than I worried or feared about, especially when the price goes up, you guys. Well, right now too, but at any given point, you will always be able to find a buyer for your metal, always. So all those websites that I showed you on that last video, basically all of them will be hungry and willing to buy back your metal at any given point. So that's one option. So price around and don't feel pressured unless you're on a time crunch to just go with the first option, right? Sniff around and see what sort of deal you can get. Call local coin shops so you don't have to like physically go in there. Just call around and say, hey, I've got X, Y, and Z coins. What's your current asking price for that? So you don't have to drive everywhere. You can just call. Okay. And like I mentioned earlier, I have established rapport and a relationship with a local dealer so that, it's just kind of good practice to have something like that. So that's what I recommend as well. Let's see. I also talked about this in the last video, the Silver Forum. I believe it's just the silverforum.com, but just type in Silver Forum and it'll pop up. That will be always a place that you can go to sell. Where else? Of course, eBay. And if you have certain coins that you can sell one by one, you're going to get a better price usually than if you try to sell in bulk somewhere. That's just been my experience from what I've seen. Because, man, some of these sellers, I'm just like, you are nuts trying to ask for this price. But listen, people buy it. So, and not everyone has the time like I've had to invest months of, researching and learning about all this stuff. So, just do your homework. Okay. Okay. So when you actually sell it, so I'll probably put this page in the description as well. But I'll word it this way. When I actually go to ship my silver to sell, if I'm going to sell it online, I am going to want to make sure that it is fully insured because I do not trust any sort of shipping cartel to make sure that it arrives safely, especially because I'm not impressed with the general protocol of how silver arrives from all of these websites to my house that, it just, they pop it in the mailbox or leave it like in the same place that like Amazon would. And it's just so silly to me that that's the standard protocol for these precious metals when they come. It just doesn't make sense. So I've always made sure that I get a tracking number and then I'm home. And when I can, I try to make sure that it's like a sign-on delivery. So even if I have to go to the post office, which I've done before, I'd rather do that than have some sort of nincompoop like steal it and then I'm out all that money because I wasn't home or didn't come to the door or whatever. So not trying to put fear in you, just kind of telling you about kind of this standard protocol for how all this is shipped. Okay. Let's see. Silver is considered the poor man's gold. So again, like I mentioned in video 1, you can buy gold, but wait until the ratio is less. So let's talk about this ratio here. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to pull up a calculator. My computer is acting slow because I have so many darn tabs open. All right, so I'm going to do it on my phone. Okay, so here's the current ratio of gold to silver, and this is what we want to be paying attention for when it finally comes to selling. Okay, so the current gold price is 1907. So you take that number and you divide it by the price of silver, 24.29. Okay, and it's 78.5. Okay, so that's the ratio, 78.5. So it's been hovering around 80 or so lately. And earlier this year, it was like something ridiculous, like 110. Okay, now what I've been saying all along, and one of the main points of my videos here, is that this aspect ratio is way off, way off, way off from what it should be. Okay, ideally, it should be 15 to 1, right? And look at this, it's 78. Okay, so this is why now is the time to frickin' buy, you guys. All right, so it's 78. So what you want to do, in my opinion, is you want to hold on to your silver and you want to wait till the ratio gets down. So it's at 78 now. Neil, who I mentioned in the first video, he's going to start selling his when it's about 50 to 1. Pimpy suggests when it starts getting 30 to 1, that's when he's going to start getting rid of some of his silver. So anything less than 30 is kind of the sweet spot to kind of start, I'll use this word in air quotes, but like selling your silver. So what do you do now if you have, let's say, a lot of silver, you've listened to Alex, you have a lot of money to invest, and you're like, okay, now what am I going to do? Okay, so the next step is you want to now transfer a bulk, not all, but a bulk of your silver into gold, because the ratio is going to be better. You're going to be getting a better value of gold at that point comparatively to silver. Okay, so you transfer it to gold, and then that's how you keep and store the bulk of your wealth. Okay, now the next thing you want to do, in my opinion, is you want to then sell some of your silver, and you're going to take the exchange of the metal in exchange for now these fiat dollars that we're getting. And then at that point, you're going to have a lot more of those dollars because the currency will now be gold backed. And you take that, and that's then when you buy your real estate. Okay. And then you take your real estate, and then you can have different people come in and rent from you, etc. And then you're not having to pay the mortgage. They are. Okay. And this is how the wealthy get wealthier, that they know all about this. Okay. And it's just finally time that we have gained this knowledge as well. And for the longest time, especially before the internet, they could completely manipulate the market by saying that they're going to sell these, they're called futures, these ETFs, and to throw paper at the price of silver, basically, with these contracts and everything. And then the silver price drops dramatically. Okay, and then when that happens, they know that the psychology is all these people who are newbies to silver, like, oh God, the price is going down, I'm going to sell. And so when the price starts hiking, then people sell out of ignorance and fear. And then the cabal is able to keep the money ratio where they want it to be. So that's why it's been so undervalued. And once all these guys go down, you are going to see, like a beach ball, like I'm using with my metaphor, you're going to see the value, the price, the spot price, etc., of silver just skyrocket. Gold too, but silver. Okay, so that's why you hold now, Lou, like I was saying earlier to you, and you don't sell now. Okay, so let's see. What else do I want to say about selling? Okay. Let's briefly talk about some terminology. So a bull run versus a bear run are some common phrases that you will hear in the investing world, especially in like stock markets and whatnot. So a bull run is going to be different than a bear run. So right now we are entering a bull run in the precious metals market. A bear run is when the market starts to take a downward trend. Okay. So the way, excuse me, to think about this is that when bulls like present themselves to a competitor, they lift their horns upward. And so the trend goes upward. But when a bear is facing a foe, it strikes its paw downward. So that's just a simple way of remembering that. So when you hear those buzzwords being used, if you're watching these videos, a bull run is a good thing if you've already invested, because that means the price is being hiked up. And a bear run is bad because that means the price is going down. Okay. So there's that piece. All right. What else do I want to make sure and cover here? Okay. So that's a little bit about selling. Okay. Know your value of silver. So before you sell, kind of price around to make sure that you know what you want to sell it for, and kind of have that in mind, and don't just sell the first place you hear. But it's nice because it's very liquid, right? That's the beauty of having a tangible asset, that if you need to sell it immediately, you can hop into any sort of coin shop, take your coins, and they will buy them for you right on the spot. Boom. Okay, so that's what's nice about that. So again, you can go to eBay, Craigslist is an option, online. There's lots of places, you guys, to sell. So do not worry about that. Okay, now the last real piece that I want to get into is a little bit about Nesara, just because I'm surprised, but there are some folks out there who are not familiar with this. So I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. In my opinion, I think that everything Trump has been doing these last 4 years is to implement Nesara without calling it that. So there's a lot of history with this movement. It started in the 60s or so. Basically, the short story is these farmers were, let's see, let me pull up a good channel that kind of talks about a summary. Right here. Morpheus 78 is a fantastic YouTube channel. And in here, there's a video where he talks about Nesara and its historical context of how it got into position. So legal parameters, I don't remember which one it was, but one of these here, he talks about like the history of, I think it's the legal parameters one of Nesara. Anyway, but every video he does is just spot on, so I can't recommend it enough. So Morpheus is saying how, and another good source, of course, is Santa Surfing. She has a whole section on her channel where she talks about kind of the history of Nesara Gesara. I think if you go in her playlist, you might be able to see it. Yeah, Nesara Gesara right here. So highly recommend checking that out. And of course, we did have Charlie Ward, but I think his channel got taken down. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah. Well, he might be back now, but he only has 7,000 subscribers. But he had like 150 or something ridiculous. So anyway, what's my point? The history, it was these farmers were having their property being taken from them, even though in their will they had bequeathed their land to the next generation. And these farmers unfortunately didn't realize that in the fine print in all of these contracts that they had signed, that the government was allowed to snatch up their farms. And so this went on forever. All these farmers were up in arms. There was one farmer who finally really did a deep dive after he lost his farm, and he found a loophole in the law. And so long story short, he was able to fight this, went all the way up to one money. I think it was like 250 million or something was like the estimated amount, but of course he had a non-disclosure, so he couldn't really even talk about it. Then he ended up kind of toward the end of his life giving little hints to other people of how they can get around this loophole. And so all these farmers banded together and they kept winning these court proceedings in terms of getting their farms and getting a huge payout. And so this, let's see, what does it stand for? Again, there's Nesara and Gesara. So Nesara is the national one. Gesara is the global one. And when Trump says America first, I think the implementation of Nesara is going to happen here in America before it goes global. But basically, what's going to take place is that the White Hats, the Alliance, whatever you want to call them, that they've been trying to implement Nesara and have it go into fruition, and it's just been continually held up by the cabal. So they were supposed to implement it once, I think in like the 70s or 80s, if I remember right from what Morpheus was saying, and that didn't end up being implemented. Then they wanted to do it more formally, and they had supposedly Clinton sign a treaty in, I think it was 99 or 1,000, and the military kind of came in, these Marines held him at gunpoint and said, you will sign this, and it will go into law. Guess what day it's going to go into law, supposedly? You ready? September 11th, 2001. And so what happens the day before? Rumsfeld said there's all these, like billions that went missing, et cetera, et cetera. And so 9/11 in part was to stop the implementation of Nesara. And so then the alliance is like, man, we've got to figure out a way that we can implement it this time without interference. And so now Pimpy has gone through and he's refuted that story about Clinton being held by gunpoint, because it's not legal if you hold someone under duress to sign a contract. So again, how are we ever going to know the details? I'm just sharing you the different stories that are out there. So Nesara stands for the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. And basically it's about forgiving debt. It's a debt jubilee. So credit card debt, mortgage debt, all these sorts of different forms of debt, student loans. We've already seen this kind of being implemented through screenshots and whatnot of people having their debt being forgiven. So, and that's been going on globally as well. It's also supposed to abolish the income tax. I know Trump has already talked about in December that he's not going to implement, the payroll tax if he gets reelected. So abolishes the IRS. First of all, that's unconstitutional to begin with. Very explicitly, it says in there that you're not supposed to have that. So, we're just going back to constitutional law. Yeah, right here, returning back to constitutional law. So he's implemented over 300 judges, something ridiculous like that, since he's been in office, and all of them are trained in, guess what, constitutional law, as opposed to all these Obama appointed judges. So a perfect example of that, if you need to red pill someone, is the Judge Sullivan, who's overseeing the Flynn case, right? That the Department of Justice has no case anymore against Flynn and has said so. We fold the case, let's draw this to a close. And for the first time, there is a judge overseeing it with no accusatory party anymore. And he's saying, no, we're not going to close the case. Like, this is just beyond ridiculous. And so he's been dragging his feet. He's had what's called an amicus brief, where he has outside opinions come in to give their voice of what should happen. I mean, it's beyond ridiculous. It's just a wonderful red pill for people to see how absolutely corrupt our judicial system is. I can't wait for Flynn to go free, Flyndication. I'd love to see him become the director of who knows what, the FBI, or maybe even run for president one day. Just such a patriot. I mean, he is the definition of just someone who loves our country and is doing really good things. So let's see. So I don't want to go through all of these, but my point is there's an aspect of this that relates to a change in currency and how that's used. So one of these right here creates new U.S. Treasury currency called the rainbow currency, backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals. So this is Nesara. Okay, Nesara is supposed to have this happen, but globally. So we don't know what rainbow currency means yet. So there is a question here that I got about how does the rainbow currency and precious metal relate to one another. So Tacoma, this is kind of how it relates, that supposedly there's going to be rainbow currency. Just disregard this name, okay? Pimpy's done a couple of videos of what the rainbow currency could look like. There's some talk about just different forms in which that might take. The point is that we're going to have currency, should all of this continue to come to fruition, that will be backed again by precious metal. Why is that important? Because you can't just magically print paper out of thin air anymore. You have to have it backed by a metal, which means you have accountability. which means the cabal can't just pressing a button and send, what was it, $9 billion or whatever it was to Iran on a pallet, with no accountability. That's bogus. So once again, when we go back to pre-1933, well, even before that, that was when 33 was when FDR kind of took the gold away. But we went off the gold standard, okay, and we need to go back onto a metal-backed currency. Okay, so that is kind of where all of this is leading, because once we get backed by gold again, okay, then gold's going to shoot up, and guess what's going to happen to silver? So that's the trajectory here in terms of part of the investing. That, in addition to all these sorts of different implementations for the usage of this metal for silver, like I mentioned in the first video, between medical equipment, different technology that's coming out. So cell phones, California is going to be implementing a requirement to have solar panels. Well, guess what's in solar panels? Silver, right? So all this trade deal, that the MCA deal that Trump's implementing, a lot of that is going to be with this manufacturing of this metal. So you're going to have the price of this go up because it has more of a utilitarian purpose. So that's why I'm looking at this logically, you guys, and I'm just like, I don't see any downfalls, because at the end of the day, even if it stays around like what it is, which it will not happen, okay, I can all but guarantee that. I guarantee that more than Trump winning the election, okay, that silver will go up, period, end of story, full stop, okay? So that said, you are going to be, it's just a solid investment. But even if it doesn't, you have the tangible asset. It's a hedge against inflation. So it doesn't depreciate. So this is why it's just a no-brainer that more than any sort of stock or any other form of investment right now, this is the way to go. I mean, even with real estate, housing prices crash. Look at commercial real estate right now, right? After COVID, I mean, that's gone through the floor. No one is investing in commercial real estate right now because everyone's at home. So people thinking that, oh, this is a given, it's all about kind of investing my money in commercial real estate. So anyway, so that's what I want to say about that. So specifically, some things that I'm starting to hear more about, I just wanted to put on your radar, because I'm starting to learn about this too, is that if we go to a new currency, okay, Charlie Ward was calling it the U.S. note is what it will be called. It won't be called the U.S. dollar anymore. But regardless of those details, if we go on to a currency and it's backed by metal, and that means the whole rest of the world's currency, paper currency, also is backed by metal, then the value of that currency is going to increase compared to what it was. Are you with me on this? So what does that mean? That means that if you're in certain countries right now where their fiat currency is so depreciated, is so inflated, that we'll talk about an example here in a minute, that let's say the Zimbabwe Zim, okay, that it's like $50 trillion, okay, that it's a joke right now. But guess what would happen if that gets backed by gold again? Do you see where I'm going? That then all of these currencies across the world will be equal in their value because they'll be equally backed by metal. So what people are thinking about is if we buy some of these currencies that are very depreciated and inflated right now, that when this reset happens, those currencies might be worth more. So I don't know. I don't put a lot of stock in this, to be quite honest, because there's been chatter about this happening for, let's see. James Gilliland was saying since the 70s is when this started, because that was, I think, when they were first trying to implement Nesara. And since 2001, there have been ongoing talks and chatter about like, oh, it's going to happen tomorrow. Oh, this reset or revaluation, sometimes they call it the RV, that it's going to happen next week. It's going to happen on X date, so get ready. And it's always a bait and switch. There's always an excuse. There's always some sort of explanation in terms of why it doesn't occur. And so don't get caught up in this, please, because it's a freaking yo-yo. And people just get so emotionally invested. And I'm like, oh, man, don't do that. So that's my warning to you all. But that said, if you are interested in getting some currency just so that you have a little bit, if nothing else for novelty, or at the end of the day, my understanding is that worst case scenario, you can go and exchange that at a bank. So it won't be like just paper money that's worth nothing, that there is some sort of value to it, or you can sell it again at like a coin store or something. So there's a couple websites I want to introduce you to. Some of the websites I mentioned in the first video through Pimpy's links, that those were international. But here are two that that I have looked into. So one, this is called collectiblescurrency.com. So I don't know if they ship internationally or not, but there are very few websites that actually sell all the different forms of the currency that you can buy. So the most common one that I hear about is the Zimbabwe banknotes. So these are this is technically not like currency or like a bill, like fiat money. That this is a bond. So just kind of a wording concept, but so there's that. So the Zimbabwe banknotes, and then you have the Vietnamese dong, and that's where I got my Facebook name, was through all the jokes that we would say about the name of their currency. So the Vietnam banknotes, and then the other one here, which they sell on their website, but you've got to search for it, is the Iraqi dinar. And Pimpy has contacts that he says absolutely this one for sure has already started or will start or something like that. So he's most confident about the dinar. And in his YouTube channel, what I love about Pimpy is that he's all fact-based. It's because there's a lot of people that talk about Nesara out there. Again, I like Charlie Ward. I like Cinesurfing. I like even Charlie Freak, and there's a bunch of others, but some of this is all theory. Like show me the sauce, right? And again, Pimpy said he's got contacts, but there's some that he can't say because it would be illegal for him to do so. But he just knows that part of this either has or will be implemented in terms of the Iraqi dinar, and so that's why he does almost daily updates and briefings on the revaluation with the dinar, because they're already in talks right now in the government about the restructuring of the country. And the current president of Iraq supposedly is a nationalist like Trump and is trying to get all the swamp creatures out. And so they are in talks in terms of what the revaluation of the dinar will look like. So we'll see what happens. Again, please do not put all of your eggs in this basket at all, but I'm just wanting to make you aware of this. But this does have the potential for you to become ungodly wealthy in a very short amount of time, if this is true. So again, triple underline if. So here's the Iraqi dinar. Yep, so there's that. So that's one website. And then the other one here that I'll briefly mention is the Zimbabwe Zim. So you can buy metals here as well, but the name of the website is Great American Coin Company, and you get a 25% off discount if you type in GGL25. So you can just go on here, and then I think $100 trillion is around like $100 more or less, if I'm remembering right. They sold one at my coin store, my local one, for like $50. That was like, wow, that's a good deal. So let's see. Yeah, 100 trillion is 140. And my understanding is but that's uncirculated. So circulated is just a couple bucks less. But yeah, 50 trillion is $45. So this is actually a better value. If you buy 250, which would equal 100, then you're spending what, $90 versus 136. So I don't really understand in terms of why it's so much cheaper. But anyway, so take that all for what it's worth. Let's see if there's any other questions that I haven't gotten to yet. I think that's everything. Okay. Well, I appreciate all of your willingness to pay attention to these very long videos. I did my best to try to be short and to the point in terms of getting this information out and distilling everything that I've learned. in a very relatively speaking short amount of time crash course of what I've taken since July, spending thousands of hours researching all this stuff. So I hope you found it worthwhile. Go ahead and leave comments down below or questions. I'm happy to do like a live Q&A either on Zoom or to do another video that kind of answers more questions. But just, I can't recommend this enough. Again, not a financial advisor, can't give you any formal advice, blah, blah, blah. But get on this ASAP and get some silver, and, you won't regret it. And maybe if all this sort of Nesara stuff does come to fruition, then we can go party like rock stars and just live out a wonderful 5D existence. So anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you on the flip side. So keep it real.